A fast strategy being more aggressive and focused on short-term goals. In contrast, those in more stable environments more likely to adopt slow strategies, investing in social relationships and focusing on long-term rewards. In Chapter 10, we take a closer look at how early stressful experiences can become encoded in the brain and how they change our perceptions of risk and reward far into the future. Key point: some responses to early experiences are adaptive for later life. Emotions. Because newborns are unable to feed or protect themselves and keep themselves warm, they are dependent on others to meet their needs. A hungry newborn can get the attention of a carer by crying, but then it is up to the carer to work out whether the infant needs feeding, changing, or cuddling. Later on, when infants gain more independence, they will be able to act on their feelings by getting up and walking to get a bottle of milk themselves, in general maintaining our well-being, whether it be by influencing others or by motivating ourselves, is driven by our emotions. We experience love, anger, fear, disgust, and pleasure, which regulate the 4 F's: feeding, fighting, fleeing, and sexual behavior. We also have emotions for dealing with other people's guilt, pride, and honor. As far as we can tell, the emotional vocabulary of children starts simpler, with newborns distinguishing between generally feeling good, well-fed, or interested, and generally feeling bad, hungry, irritable, and distressed over time through repeated social interactions. This basic feeling, good versus bad, starts to separate into subtler shades of emotional meaning. But before some emotions can be experienced or expressed, other psychological milestones need to be achieved first. For example, guilt requires some prior understanding of what the norm or expected behavior is in order to feel guilty about violating it. Jealousy requires some prior understanding of the difference between self and others in order to feel jealous or something else. So emotions that require more sophisticated understanding of social relationships, pride, jealousy, shame, and guilt, tend to emerge later than those emotions that do not: fear, disgust, pleasure, figure 2.2. As children get older, they learn to regulate their own emotions with more control. Picture the average 3-year-old explosive tantrum compared with the simmering inner rage of adolescence. Figure 2.2. As infants develop, their emotional repertoire expands, as does their ability to recognize emotions in others, and later on to regulate their own emotions. What counts as appropriate emotional regulation is influenced by the values of the society that children are born into. For example, researchers studied the reactions of 7 to 11-year-old children to emotionally charged situations, such as spilling a drink on their homework or being falsely accused of stealing. Cole et al. 2002. American children were more likely to respond with anger and be problem-focused and action-orientated, consistent with the more American values of self-assertion and personal agency. By contrast, children from Nepal were more likely to respond to the same event with the shame than anger, and to express more self-control, and they were generally more accepting of the situation, consistent with the values of the Buddhist and the Brahmin societies these children were raised in. As well as using emotions to regulate their own well-being, children learn to recognize emotions in others and use them to respond appropriately in different situations. For example, Campos and colleagues, 1992, placed 12-month-old infants on a clear table surface under which two levels of flooring produced the appearance of a cliff. To the infants, it appeared as if the surface ended abruptly, but if they did crawl further, they would be supported by a clear surface. Some 70% of infants were willing to cross over the cliff. Edge. Towards their mothers, if they could see that their mothers had a happy expression, but no infants did so if the mother showed expression of fear. In this case, being able to read the emotions of others helped to regulate their well-being, i.e., if they stopped them falling off a cliff. In a separate study, a similar age group of infants expressed significantly more fearful signals towards the stranger and avoided them if they had seen their mothers reaching in a fearful way towards the same stranger. De Rosnay et al. 2006. Many studies have shown that from about 10 months of age onwards, infants look to their caregivers' emotional expression to judge how they should behave, particularly when placed in a situation of uncertainty, ambiguity, and or novelty. Learning in this way sidesteps risky first-hand trial and error and taps into experience of others. For example, rats are much more likely to try a new food if they have smelled it on the breath of other rats. A smart strategy to avoid toxic foods. Galaf, 1987. So this kind of learning is not unique to humans, but as we will see in Chapter 5, humans have taken social learning much, much further than any other species. It is not hard to see how many of our basic emotions are Darwinian adaptations that keep us safe and well. Indeed, it was Darwin himself who provided one of the first recorded case studies of any child, keeping a diary of his infant son's expressions, which he later used in his Theory of Emotional Development in Children, 1872. A classic example is disgust, which cause a scrunched nose and a mouth expression, reducing air intake from potentially harmful substances. Fear causes heavier breathing and quicker heart rate, which redistributes blood in preparation for rapid movement and puts us on high alert. The widened eyes of individuals with a fearful facial expression have found to increase the scope of what we can see, allowing individuals to better identify potentially threatening objects in their periphery. Susskind et al. 2008. Key points. Emotions help us set our goals and regulate our well-being. Infants start out with a basic repertoire of positive and negative emotions that become more differentiated over time. So emotions like disgust, fear, and pleasure can motivate us to take action. And for very young children, this often means satisfying a set of biologically rooted needs, feeding, warmth, and protection. But as children develop, emotions soon become imbued with the values, beliefs, and customs of society they are born into. For example, Rotger Rosler and colleagues studied the development of shame in a group of toddlers in rural Minangkabau, an ethnic group of Indonesian island of Sumatra. Rotger Rosler et al. 2013. They documented that when these children met a stranger, they often reacted with a mild form of fear that involved hiding behind their mothers, avoiding eye contact, and being both quiet and restrained. Minangkabau caregivers interpret this behavior as the first sign of malu, a highly esteemed form of shame that is expressed by signals such as avoiding eye contact, hiding the face behind the hands, and collapsed body postures. Caregivers praise their children for early malu displays in front of others and reinforce the avoidance behavior with the desired long-term effect that children extricated this shameful expression as they got older. So while the initial fear response of children to a stranger is not unique to this culture, the way the adults react is. And this shapes these children's emotional development in a unique way. In Canada, children who are shy or emotionally reserved are more likely to be negatively judged by their peers, whereas these same behaviors are viewed as a sign of emotional maturity in Chinese children. And so they are more often accepted by their peers. Chen, 2012. As well as differences between societies, differences within societies in the way caregivers, peers, and siblings respond to emotions also play a key role in shaping children's emotional development. For example, children who have parents who help them explore their feelings and those of others in what they are called emotional coaching are better able to recognize others' emotions than children in families that discuss their feelings less often done. 2004. Children develop a similar vocabulary of emotions. Precisely what those emotions mean is shaped by social interactions, by cultural norms. Talking point. Love matters, and it matters for children all over the world. In a study that drew together findings from over 31 countries, children's perceptions of their mothers and fathers' warmth, acceptance, and affection, in short, their love, were associated with greater psychological well-being, whereas feeling rejected predicted children's distress in later life. Kalak and Ali, 2017. Love goes to the heart of the relationship between parents and children. Being a parent is not about creating a particular kind of child that grows into a particular kind of adult, but about experiencing a particular kind of love and providing a protected space for the children to grow up in. That structured, stable environment that parents can provide helps children be variable, unpredictable, and messy. Gottnick, 2016. Our emotions give us behavioral compass that regulate interactions with others and the physical world. They point us in the broad direction of what to do, e.g., flee from danger, and when to stop, i.e., feeling safe. Despite what we have learned about the importance of providing nourishing, stimulating, and loving environments, the inner world of children's emotions of definition remain hidden. Moreover, the same emotional expression can indicate different experiences. A smile can signal joy, pride, embarrassment, and even contempt. How can we be sure children's experiences of emotion maps onto adults' experiences? More generally, how can we be sure that anyone else is experiencing an emotion in the same way we do? That the pain of my toothache feels like yours. Love, compassion, and empathy might be the closest we will come to feeling anything else, someone else's toothache. And in the next chapter, we will learn more about how children develop the sense of empathy, imagining what others see, know, and believe. Summary. In short term, infants need immediate care from others to survive, and they encourage this with their physical appearance and behaviors. In the long term, parenting is a big investment, and over the course of our history, this has caused infants to advertise their worth and parents to be selective over whom they are cared for. A peak in early brain plasticity creates an especially sensitive period early on in the development. Early experiences matter, but they matter to some children more than others. Some responses to early experiences are adaptive for later life. Emotions help us set our goals and regulate our well-being. Infants start out with a basic repertoire of positive and negative emotions that become more differentiated over time. Children develop a similar vocabulary of emotions. Precisely what those emotions mean is shaped by social interactions and cultural norms.